Okay, here's my classroom coding lesson plan. I'm doing grade 3 for science, and so my topic is the changes of organisms. The state standard I'm using is standard 3.2.1, develop and use models to describe changes that organisms go through during their life cycles. And then the learning outcome will be students will use digital devices to create the changes an organism, specifically a frog, goes through during its life cycle. They will use the program Scratch with a pre-made set of sprites and backgrounds. I need to put my Scratch link right here, but I put it through here, so it's on there, but I'll just update that. So my lesson introduction will review the life cycle of a frog by listening to and reading a book called Little Frog, The Life Cycle of a Frog. And then we will pair up with another student, blah, 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 blah. This is all on my presentation. So let's go to my presentation real quick. Okay. All right, so coding the life cycle of frogs. To help us review what we know about a frog's life cycle, we are going to read a book. Where is the book? Here it is. Okay, it just wasn't loading. So we're going to read this book, Little Frog.
By Autumn I went.
Blah, blah, blah.
So out
it goes through the life cycle of a frog. And then now we're going to use what we learned to create our own frog story with code. So here are the steps for the activity. First, they're going to find a partner, get a piece of paper and a pencil, recreate a decomposition and a storyline that they can create together on Scratch. And then they can use this website if they're stuck. So they can just click on this, and then it goes through the life cycle of a frog, and it goes through this picture and talks about the different pieces. So the frog spawn or the eggs, the tadpoles with legs. And then it goes through, just a couple of different things and some extra fun facts about frogs. So if we go back to the slide, then the next step is to go to the next slide. So we're going to start here for your Scratch project, so they can click right here on this link for their Scratch pack. And then on the slide and in the instructions, it says to make sure you remix your own copy of the Scratch pack. Look at the top and click the green button that says remix. So on their own websites, on their own links, they'll have an opportunity to make a remix. Then they have to name their remix Frog Life Cycle with their name and their partner's name. So for example, mine is Frog Life Cycle, Mrs. Stevenson. And then I said where the sprites come from, and all other sprites and backgrounds come from Scratch. And then it also talks about how the activity is to help enhance students' understanding of frogs' life cycles, and they are to create their own story and explanation using the Scratch pack and the instructions on my Canva presentation. So I also included the link to my presentation. So if we look inside here, we have all of the sprites that they might need, and then they're supposed to pick a couple more that they can use that they don't necessarily have to code. And then they have their backdrops, which were previously chosen, so they'll have to name those as well. But that's the Scratch pack, so those are all of the little sprites that they can use and the backgrounds. So let's go back to the presentation. And again, it's just the same information that was on Scratch. So the next part is the rubric. They're supposed to name their sprites, name your backgrounds, include a storyline, include comments to organize your code, delete code not being used, code is complete and works, code can be replayable, characters and backgrounds can be reset, include blocks with motion, sound, looks, loop, and at least one of the following, either a conditional, variable, list, or my block. And then there should be 8+ sprites, and at least 4 are coded. So when you finish, you're supposed to open this document and put yours and your partner's names in one of the boxes on the left column and the link to your Scratch project in the right column. So let's click on this link. And then I already have mine in there. So they put the names of both partners. Mine is just Mrs. Stevenson, and the Scratch project link. So this is the project link for my own personal Scratch project that I used as an example, which I will show in a little bit. So here's some debugging. This one is talking about changing the direction that your sprites are facing, so they can just watch this little video, which explains how to get their sprite facing right or left, which I needed to use for my project, so I figured that would be a good opportunity for a debugging thing. And then also the My Blocks were really confusing for me at the beginning of when I was learning code. So I decided to include a video about how to create a My Block. So they're supposed to watch 0 to 1.5 minutes, then skip to 5 minutes and watch to the end, because she talks about a lot of different kinds of blocks. But I just want them to do like their custom block, define it, and use it. And then here is my example. So we'll click on that. And I made sure to include everything that I had in the rubric for my students. The instructions are press the green flag to start, then watch the life cycle of the frog. Images are from the website that I am having them use as a resource. So let's look inside really quick. So I have all of my sprites and all of the extra sprites, and the backgrounds are all labeled wetland, river, underwater. So to start, I'm going to start with the eggs because that's kind of where we begin. I've got the storyline here. So there's a mom frog. I didn't include a dad frog, so I'm going to delete that. Who jumps into frame, and the mom lays her egg under the water. The eggs hatch into tadpoles and start swimming around. The tadpoles grow legs and swim faster. The tadpoles grow into young frogs and go to the river where they can be in and out of the water with their tails. The frogs lose their tails and they are full adults and can jump around on land. So what I did was when it's clicked, all of my sprites are going to hide except for my adult frog. So actually I'm going to start with the adult frog. So I made a My Block and defined a bounce. So at the beginning, the frog is going to be right here and bounce onto this rock and then lay eggs. So the eggs will appear, and then the adult frog will bounce off. The eggs are going to shake around a little bit. So I made a little tiny glide and made that repeat 3 times. So they'll kind of just like shake around for a little bit and then they'll start hatching. And then when they start hatching, I had one of my tadpole sprites come out of the eggs, and then it will make clones. And every time it makes a clone, it will rotate the sprite a little bit and then play a popping sound as if it's like popping out of its eggs. And that'll repeat that 8 times. And then when it's done repeating, it will have one of the tadpole sprites come to the middle and replace. The tadpole will hide and the tadpole with legs will show. And then it'll kind of wiggle for a second and then it will swim off of the background and it'll go switch backgrounds to the river. So let me switch this to the river real quick. So then when it's on the river, the tadpole with legs will swim up to here and it'll change places with the froglet. So the tadpole with legs will disappear, the froglet will show. The froglet will like swim around for a second and then it will turn directions and swim down to this bottom corner where it will then turn into a frog, and then the frog will bounce off of the page and we will switch to the wetland background. And then the frog will bounce across the page. And then when it gets to the right side of the page, it is going to switch back to the underwater code and the frog will bounce right back to where it started. So then it'll reset and then you can do it as many times as you want. So let me expand this and we will just watch what we did. And it's random every time. And then it goes right back to where it started, and then you can play it again. So that's the code, and I believe that's the end of the slideshow. Good luck, and that's it.